Coming up next on Another View, to spank or not to spank. It's clearly a topic that strikes a nerve. We've had more traffic on Facebook about this show than any other Another View program. It's a touchy subject in the African American community. Are you in the spare the rod, spoil the child camp, or are you a member of the timeout group? Our guest today says that it goes much deeper than discipline. In fact, one of our guests says black parents have to stop beating black kids in order to stop generational abuse. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. The controversy over spanking is next after this news from NPR.
Discussing the issues and celebrating the successes of the African American community. This is Another View.
And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Whether it's a tap on the leg or a pop on the fingers to a full-scale whooping, corporal punishment or spanking is an emotional topic. It is a particularly touchy topic in the African American community because there are some who truly believe the only way to discipline a child is to spank. Our guest today beg to differ. Please welcome Asadah Kirkland, author of Beating Black Children. Hi, Asadah. How are you?
I am dynamic, and yourself?
Fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us. And psychologist Dr. Janis Sanchez. Janis, thank you for joining us again.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
We're glad to have you here. So, ladies, we've gotten tons of traffic on Facebook. People around the building have been talking about this. Spanking is something I think that everybody relates to. But in doing the research, it seems that African American parents spank more often than other races. Asadah, let me start with you. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is, and why are you so opposed to it?
Well, very simply, we are more prone to hit our children, to discipline them because of a tradition that we've picked up. I hate to even call it a tradition, but it's become a part of the fiber of our culture. But it comes from being descendants of slaves. It's real simple. What you see in terms of like the corollary is that in today's world, we say, well, if I don't spank him, the police are going to get him. But back in slavery days, we said, if I don't beat him, the master's going to get him. You know, it's a very similar thing. And it's the viewpoint that you instill fear in the child so that they don't do things, so that they don't get reprimanded by the authorities, per se. And so that's just a real simple part of it. It comes from slavery. Some people don't really care about that, but the point is, it's detrimental to the spirit of our children and to our futures. It's 400 years, and we're still in the same situation. It's a problem. So, although I don't deal with that subject matter per se in the book, that is where it comes from. It comes from that type of lifestyle.
Well, let me ask you this, and Janis, I'm going to come to you, and then Asadah, I want to get your opinion also. Do you see a difference, Janis, between a tap on the hand or a swat on the butt versus what we used to call a whooping, you know, where the parent is hitting with something, right, et cetera?
I think there is a distinction, and I think that people call it a whipping, a beating. There are different words for it. I know that I'm familiar, like in our family, it was our dads would give the spanking, the whipping, the beating, but my mom would do the hitting. And I think that the challenge in spanking is that if people could be calm and not angry, in control of their emotions, and not deal with some problems they have at work, not deal with the fact they're not feeling well, if they could be perfectly composed and give a child a spanking that is not using excessive force, then I don't think we would have as many consequences with spanking. But I think most of us have a lot of emotions going on when we decide to spank a child. I advocate not spanking in my private practice, and I decided not to spank with my own children. But I think that the consequences of spanking are huge. I just would add to what our previous guest saying that I think that African Americans spank because we fear the consequences of not spanking. Just like she said, before it was slavery. Now I think we have biblical traditions that tell us to spank, and we also have the knowledge that if we don't discipline our children, the police will pick up the child. And there's not this sort of thing with African Americans where boys will be boys. If they break the law, they do something that's wrong, they're going to be punished. They're going to be before a judge.
So we need to keep them from getting to that
That's
point.
the concern that parents have.
That's the concern. Well, Asadah, when I was doing some research, and it says that in the South, people are more likely to spank than, say, in the Northeast, for example. And when you think of the South, we were talking about this in our production meeting. The interns immediately said, "Oh, the Bible Belt," and that's the reason why. How do you respond when people throw Proverbs at you? And I want to read the two chapters that this comes from. Proverbs 22:15 that says, "Foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child. The rod of correction will drive him far from it." And then Proverbs 23:13 and 14, "Do not withhold correction from a child, for if you beat him with a rod, he will not die. You shall beat him with a rod and deliver his soul from hell." So both of these, are saying from the Bible, and that is something that is very, very critical in the African American community. So what's your response to parents when they say, "I'm just doing what I've been taught and what God says to do"?
Well, in my book, there's a chapter called "Spare the Rod," and because I am faced with the spare the rod as the defense, as to say, well, I can hit my kid. First of all, I can't believe people are using a spiritual book to defend hitting children. That's just so not like Christ. I can't even start. But what I say in the chapter is, who wrote that? Because Jesus did not write it. And people, want to get defensive over Solomon. But I say, I don't know Solomon or his mother. I don't know how his mother treated him. That is something written by man, number one. And then number two, it's in the Bible. Who wrote that? Who is King James? What is King James' philosophy? How did he treat women? It was legal to beat women at one point. And so what? Somebody was courageous enough to fight up against that and to make it so that it's unlawful now to beat your wife? It's the same stuff. It's the same stuff. So when they bring that stuff from the Bible, my main thing is that I don't know who those men are. I don't know who their parents are and why they have that philosophy. But I also would like to bring up the point that, please, let's not act like we weren't enslaved and that the Bible wasn't used to enslave us. That's real basic. And, we were treated like savages, told we were savages, and that we should convert to this particular religion. And the Bible and everything else was used to get their point across. So when you say to the people, this is what the Bible says, the credence of that, that's not going to outweigh how much I love my daughter and how I'm going to treat her. So I'm not, even if it said what it said, I'm not going to use it to say, oh, it's okay for me to hit her because it says it right there. It doesn't make sense. So that's usually my position on that and what I say to that, because it's just ridiculous, and not to mention it was 2,000 years ago or so, so let's just get this together, please.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call. Give us a call. Let us know what you feel about whether or not corporal punishment is appropriate in terms of raising children. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So, Asadah, you really believe that black parents should not spank their black children no matter what. Is that right?
Yeah, no matter what, because it's just a real indication of our skill level, period. If you cannot get a child to do something with just communicating with them, then your skills are low. You need to get your skills up as a parent, because they will drive us a little crazy. My daughter drives me a little crazy. But what it does for me as an individual is it makes me more cunning and a little more creative in terms of how I have to get her to do things. Now, striking her, see, my thing is the memories you're leaving in those kids when you strike them, you have to deal with that later in life. And I just had somebody tell me that their 80-year-old mother cries every time she starts to talk about how she was never able to pursue her dream of singing because her mother would beat her whenever she would show that she wanted to sing. This lady, 80 years old, and still affected by her mother whipping her butt. She's 80. So my thing is the memories we are leaving in our children, my daughter will never have the memory of her mother who loves and trusts her and vice versa. She'll never equate me with striking her. That's the outside world. She has to be aware of it, how they'll strike her, but never the person that loves her and the person who's supposed to guide her. And so under no circumstances could I bring myself that low to strike my offspring, because I need my offspring to listen to me and to grow for me and to share with me and to develop her And those types of viewpoints and words and encouragement, that's what a parent gives to a child, not striking them with objects or their hands. That's for the outside world to potentially do to them.
Well, now I'm going to throw something out because I keep this show very real.
Mm-hmm.
And, in the African American community, when we start talking about, timeout and other types of discipline where people are often accused of raising their children white,
Right.
that they are not, that this is not what African American parents do, and that kids act out and they throw temper tantrums and so forth because of that type of discipline as opposed to spanking them. So, Janis, I'll start with you. What's your reaction to that? And then I'm coming to you, Asadah.
Sure. I tell parents in counseling and I tell people in life that they need to find alternatives to spanking because spanking is violence. And when a child does something wrong, you do not want to teach the child that the consequence of doing something wrong is to give them more violence. To yell at them, to hit them, to punish them physically is just teaching them that violence is okay and violence is unacceptable. Mm-hmm. So I think that we have to use timeout. I know that for my partner and I, we saw that very early. My daughter was 2 years old. We told her to take a nap and she said no. My husband hit her 2 times. She got up and said no. He hit her 4 times. And I looked at him and I realized that he was determined to make her take a nap. If it meant hitting her up teen times, he was going to do it. And I think that we get into a battle of wills with our children. We're trying to change their behavior by hitting them. I don't think that's acceptable. I don't think that's what we want to teach the child, that the stronger person, the person who hurts the other person more, that's the person who wins. So I think that we as parents have to come up with different kinds of timeouts. I think that timeout has to be different for different children. Sending a child to a room with their toys, with the computer, with everything for them to play with is not time out. Yeah. Okay? I think we as parents sometimes have to put the children back in the corner and really give them a timeout from reinforcement.
Mm-hmm. Asadah, what do you say when someone says, well, that little kid, I would never have my child talk back to me like that. That's what white people do.
Well, first of all, for all those who feel like that's what white people do, yeah, that's why they give you your job, too, because their children are raised with communication. The white children are not all out, laying out, having temper tantrums all over the place, and people know that. I'm around white children and their nannies and mamas all day, and that's not the case. We like to give that because there is a difference in how we raise our children, but that's just not true. White kids are not out and being all turbulent and all kind of stuff. They're just not doing it, number one. Number two, it's about your child's response. And let me get to timeout. Let me just back up a little bit. Timeout. I have a chapter called No Timeout because I'm actually not into timeout either. Mm-hmm. Only in that I don't see a solution in putting a child in a corner to make them think. All they thinking about is how much they resent you and how you getting on their nerves. Like, that's what I'd be in the corner thinking. I wouldn't be thinking about my actions. They're too little for that. They're just thinking about how you pissing them off right now, and they wish they could do something about it. So my thing is, the solution really has to be to find out what is the problem, why they act in a particular way. And I'm like, I asked my daughter the other day, I said, you're malfunctioning right now. What's going on? Can you please help me understand why that just happened? Because that's a malfunction. Help me understand. And she looked at me, she laughed a little bit because she could agree, like her bumping into this and doing whatever was not what it should have been. But then she just comes and she explains it or not. Or the point is, my tone about it is to just find out why that's happening and not put her in a corner, because if I put her in a corner, I don't know what's festering in that corner. I don't know what they're thinking about. I don't know what. And that is where the problems begin to just continue and continue and continue. They can continue. So I actually have a chapter called No Timeout, and because there are other solutions, But basically on the white tip, and just to finish on the white parent being white, it's not about being white. It's about, do you have the skill enough to raise your child without hitting them? If you beat your offspring, there's no way I'm going to respect you and give you anything. That's from grants to whatever else, because you beat your offspring. You don't even nurture the thing that's going to be your future. That's our future. So if you beat your future, that's what your future will look like. That's my viewpoint about that.
Okay, 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Mark joins us from Norfolk. Hi, Mark. You're on the air.
Hey, good afternoon. This is a very interesting topic, and as I'm driving in my vehicle, my 4 children and my wife are listening to this program. I'll be very succinct. One is, when you talk about the Bible and if you basically disregard basically those teachers, and I understand that your guest said she didn't understand, about the writers, what their purpose, what may have been the order of the day. And from an intellectual standpoint, I agree with her 100%. Now, for those believers that take the Bible, unfortunately, the Bible, either you have to believe all of it, or you have to let it all alone. There is no lukewarm when it comes to that. So, first of all, that's my undebatable truth. So either you take it or you let it alone. Now, moving along to the next point, as far as when we talk about, I think we're kind of putting labels and identifying corporate punishment, violence, and all these other labels. I mean, if I were a lawyer, I could also sell the same argument that your guests are selling, that all of that sounds ridiculous. I think it sounds unwarranted. It sounds violent. It sounds evil. But that wasn't my experience. I received the rod. I received it multiple occasions, different ways, different times. And then there were times where I didn't receive the rod, where I got the conversation piece. And then I also had parents that nurtured me. And I didn't take it as I was being, that I had violence being perpetrated upon me. The other point, and I'll just finish with this, although I could go on, but at what point, and I ask your guest this sincerely, and with most respect, with the intellectual property perspective, at what point, once your children leave your space, whether it's daycare, whether it's school, church, play, there are going to be atmospheric circumstances and events that you will not be able to save them from experiencing that will absolutely adjust and modify their behavior as they mature. Even something as simple at home. You just finished cooking, and the child wants to maybe experiment to see whether or not if the stove is hot or not. So therefore, you touch it, and then the response is the next thing you're doing a home remedy, be it with butter.
Okay, Mark, we got to get down to the point because it's kind of rambling here. But your point is...
Here's my point.
Okay.
My point is, you can say that sparing the rod is violent. But all I'm saying is, once our children leave our nest, either be it temporary or for long periods of time, we cannot circumvent life. It's going to give them some of those equal experiences, if not harsher, that's going to modify their thinking and their individual behavior.
Okay.
That's my point.
Let me ask you one last question before I let you go. Do you spank your children?
I would say, yeah, we do discipline. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Don't get carried away with it. I normally like to use the look. I normally like to use the vocal intonation first. But, there are certain times
it's in your repertoire. In other words, it's one of the tools.
Absolutely.
I got you. Thanks so much for calling, Mark. We appreciate your call. Janice, you want to respond?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark, for calling. First of all, I'm not a biblical scholar, but the reality is that the Gospels were written like 80 to 100 to 200 years after Christ actually lived. So I respect the Bible as a book of knowledge, but I know that what's reported comes through hearsay. So I think it's a good book for us to follow, but I do not think we can take it literally. And when you talked about the kinds of things that our children will experience, our children are going to receive negative reinforcement when they make the mistake on a job, if they make a mistake in school. Life gives people lessons all the time. My challenge in discipline is to try to teach children to make good decisions in their future, just in the way you described, by giving them some time to think about it, time to figure out what the best answer would be. And I don't think that spanking a child gives the child the chance to figure out why they should do something or why they shouldn't. So that's one of the reasons why I do not advocate spanking.
Asadah?
Oh, I couldn't wait till you call me. Oh, my God. Okay, so first I want to say to the 4 kids in the car, I got your back, okay? That's nothing against your parents, but I got your back. I understand they might use corporal punishment, but I got the kids back. Okay, cool. Now, number 2, in terms of the Bible and how people take it literally, Genesis chapter 14, God tells everybody that they should be vegetarians. That he said, I'm going to give you food, seeds, you use this for meat. Go read that. How many vegetarians you got in the black church? None. Stop. So we're not taking the Bible all literally and all living by it. So that argument, it's not an argument, brother, but I'm just saying, let's just put it to the side. But this is what we're talking about. We take what we want and use it, and we take what we don't want, we don't use it. But the main thing is that if you raise your child with love, we spend more time trying to, you don't instill fear in a child to come against the world just so that they can deal with more fear. No, you empower them so that when these adversities come up, they can handle the adversities. The other day, my daughter was in a room with 4 other kids. Those kids were running around and playing around, and they did something, and they threw over this lady's cable box by mistake, and it broke. So my daughter was not involved. Now, I know that, but the little girl who was involved with all the other little kids actually told the adult that owned the house, the only child that stayed to the side was Patience. That's my daughter's name. So
that's my granddaughter's name.
Oh, excellent. So I know that Patience wasn't involved, but I know because I know how Patience was raised. And she doesn't have an interest in being involved in things that are adverse. And so when she goes out in the world, she actually refrains from environments that bring that energy, or she doesn't get involved. If she sees that people are going one way, she goes another. Or if kids tease her, she says, you don't know what asparagus is? You should try it. Do you want a piece? It's a very different flow. So you have to equip kids with things that they can use to empower the world, not equip them with more fear and beating so that they can be ready for more fear and beating. That's setting them up for a life of fear and beating, and I'm not doing that. You do different. You empower them so they can run the world, and that's what some other cultures do that we look to give us money and jobs and what have you. They put that in their children. They don't put fear and beating in their children.
Okay, 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Lisa joins us from Virginia Beach. Hi, Lisa. You're on the air.
Hi. I listen to your show every Friday afternoon. I work basically from my car. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I would challenge all of your guests and the conversations that arise is let's put this battle of races behind us. I don't know anyone that was around and alive during the days of slavery. I don't know anybody who is alive and well today that initiated slavery. I'm not white. I'm not black. I am Cherokee. My grandmother died on the Trail of Tears.
Lisa, can I ask you, let me clarify 2 things. First of all, another view, as we say in our introduction, we discuss the issues and celebrate the successes of the African American community. And it is a way for us to talk about issues from a cultural perspective. We're talking today about spanking. So if you have a response to that, do you have something that you'd like to say as to whether or not you believe kids should be spanked or not?
I believe that they should in extreme aspects, yes. If they're doing something, if they're walking out into traffic, yeah, I believe that they should be spanked and brought back.
Okay. Thank you for that, because we will, I wanted to deal with that anyway, Janice. There's some things that people say, if a child is in danger, that is an appropriate response to really get their attention.
And I do want to throw out, there is some research by Diana Barmeron and Elizabeth Owens, a University of California, Berkeley, that said that people who had very mild spanking in their life, it did not result in adverse consequences. So there is some research that researchers have done that said that very mild spanking does not lead to the problems that big beatings do. Mm-hmm. The problem I have is that I don't think we as parents can always be in control of our emotions. And so that's why I'm opposed to spanking.
Because we can't necessarily say that it's going to be a very mild spanking.
Yes, and we all have been spanked.
Asadah, if your daughter was running out into the street and you grabbed her, would your inclination be to swat her, to say don't do that?
I love that question because it's always brought to me. So basically what I did is when Patience was 3 years old, maybe 4, I said, okay, this is the sidewalk. Step down. This is the street. Now look this way. You see those cars? Come here. Come to this car. Lift it up. Can you pick that car up? It's heavy, right? You can't pick it up? All right. If you run in this street, you get hit by one of these, equal blood on the ground, your body, you might not be here. I mean, try to get as graphic as I could. Mm-hmm. And to this day, Patience will not touch that street. She's 8 years old. She will not touch that street until I reach it. Or if I'm already in it, she is on my elbow and she is watching that street because her mother taught her the lesson of the street. Same with the stove. When she was 3 years old, I said, come here, turn this knob. She goes and she turns the knob. Okay, ooh, see that fire come up? Okay, now put your hand in. Ooh, yeah, it's hot, right? Okay, if that touches you, burn, blood, skin coming off, everything. Okay, great. So Patience has no interest in going to the stove. So the curiosity gets handled because Patience's mom helped handle it. But when people bring that to my attention, like kids running in the street, one, why your child running in the street? What is going on with your life that they're running in the street away from you? That we need to handle. But then two, let's look at the skill that we just need to make sure that we don't impart our fear on them because we hit them because we got fearful of what could happen to them. But if you do the combination of those things, teach the lesson, and then do something more proactive. So, because if you were engaged with a child, having a conversation, they wouldn't be running in the street because they're talking to you. Mm-hmm. And so there's a way to get around that by getting engaged in your child's life. It's real basic.
Okay, if you're just joining us, we're talking about spanking as discipline with Asadah Kirkland, author of Beating Black Children, and psychologist Dr. Janis Sanchez. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 is the number to call. Jonathan joins us from Hampton. Hi, Jonathan, you're on the air.
Hello. I'm a 55-year-old African-American male, and I have never, ever been spanked. My parents could talk to me and make me cry. Your guest, Asadah.
So your dad could give you the look, huh?
He could give me the look. Mm-hmm. And every interaction is an opportunity for a learning experience. So when things happen and your parent can take time to you, just like Asadah just said, and explain to the child before they get hurt, this is something that could happen. I think that I'm the person I am right now because of the fact that I never got spanked. I don't feel any aggression towards people. I'm not saying I probably didn't deserve to get spanked sometime, but I cannot recall a time when my parents, when I went in the military, my father wrote me a letter, and he said, son, whatever you do, stay away from drugs. I still have that letter. My father's been dead since 1976.
Did you have children, Jonathan?
Unfortunately, I don't, but I have two dogs that I love, and when they misbehave, I don't spank them.
They don't get spanked either.
They don't get spanked either. And my wife loves me. When we have arguments, and we do have arguments, after the argument is over, we talk about it, we move on. I don't carry grudges. And I don't think that's unique, but I think when you beat people, one of your guests says, they're going to remember that. If here I am, 55, if I can remember never being spanked by my parents, but being scorned, and being talked to the point that it brought me to tears. I said, if I ever have kids, I want to be able to do that too. My sister has two sons, never spanked them. She can talk to them. My sister and I get along beautifully, and we talk about mom never spanking us, dad talking to us. So what you would do at that very, very young age does have an impact when you get to our age.
All right. Jonathan, thanks so much for the call. We appreciate it. Janice?
Yeah, I would say that I think it's great, Jonathan, that worked for you. It works for your sister. But I also think that having had a strong-willed child, not every parent has children that are very amenable to listening to stories. And I think that's why we have to have a variety of discipline strategies. But I don't believe in spanking, so I think that it challenges parents when they have a strong-willed child who wants to challenge you all the time to come up with a discipline that helps them to get the message.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Hasseltine from Cambridge joins us on the air. How are you?
Fine. I just happened to turn the radio on and heard this. I do not believe in spanking. Mm-hmm. I grew up with spanking. I didn't understand a lot of it then, didn't appreciate it then. I'm 71, and I don't appreciate it now. I did not raise my children being spanked. I studied other ways because I wanted to change things. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we need to look at, how we can change the discipline that has been meted out to our children. Most black parents did not give mild spankings. You had beatings with switches or whatever they had that they could use.
Whatever was at hand.
Right. Now, what we need to realize is that most babies are cute, and you cannot overlook the things that they're doing when they're very small and not teach them then, and that is not without spanking. They're talking about looks. You can give a small child a look, and they will understand if you have been teaching them. You don't have to start beating them, but you can't wait until they're 12 or 13 and then decide to go back and correct the things that you have let go on all those other years. Find another way. And these people, I get so tired of these Bible scholars talking about the Bible telling you to beat, spare the rod. They won't find anywhere from Genesis to Revelation where Christ beat a child.
Yes.
He did beat some adults, but he certainly didn't beat any children.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Amen.
Time out should only be for a reasonable amount of time, depending on the age of the child. It does work.
Okay. Hasseltine, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Asadah, what are some of the other ways? She talks about don't wait until the child is 12 before you try starting this, first of all. But what are some of the other disciplinary tactics that parents can use?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that. One thing I do want to say, that look, because I do have a chapter called The Look, and I like the look because it works. My mama still look at me, and I'm 41 years old. Like I still know what that means. But the reason why the look works is not because the kids so much are fearful of you, but it is a demonstration to them that you do not approve, and genuinely, our kids do not want to disappoint us. They do not want to hurt us. They do not like creating in us emotions that make us upset. And so that look works because they can see the change from a happy person to a person who's not happy. And so they don't want to create that. They do not. So that's mainly because they love us. They don't want to create that. So that's why that works. I actually wrote something. It's like an 11-point credo. It's called the Parental Code of Ethics. And I wrote it because people always want solutions. And I don't know if you all want me to share. If we have enough time, I could just share the 11 points. But it does have the solutions that we need. Like one of them would say...
Yeah, give us a couple.
Sure, no problem. One says, I will focus on creating true happy moments in my child's life. Another says, I will work to have good, safe control over my child's surroundings and not control over his or her mind and decisions. The most important to me, the one I love, says, I will only seek excellence in my child if I am excellent myself. And so I made these so that people can hang them up, refer to them, live them, breathe them, use them, and they're magnetic, honey. They go right on the refrigerator. They go right on the file cabinet.
I like that.
That's right. And you can actually go on the website and get it. But I put it on my Facebook page. If you just go to Asadah Kirkland, you can go on my Facebook page, and I put the link for the website because it's a new website, but it has the parental code.
Yeah, I was going to say, Asadah, give us the website, too, so that people can write that down. Can you give us the website?
Sure. I'm going to give you the website. The website to the site it's going to change, but it's beatingblackkids.com. Just go to beatingblackkids.com. But if you want the parental code of ethics, go to my Facebook page at Asadah Kirkland, and I put the link right up top for you. And you go to the new website, and you go to products and services, and you'll see the parental code of ethics in its entirety. And you can buy it straight from there. And like I said, you can hang it anywhere. It's magnetic. But these 11 points are so great. So also what I did when you get the book has solutions all throughout it. And I put little keys, like little visual keys next to each solution so that you can find a key and find a solution and start to use it. So,
all righty. Thank you. Edward joins us from Corporal, North Carolina. Hi, Edward. You're in the air.
Hi. How you doing? Thanks for taking my call. Yes. Well, I wanted to share two quick things. First, I just wanted to make a quick comment, and I know this is not a religious discussion, so I want to just make a quick comment about it. But, I am a follower of Jesus and have been for about 9 years now. But the Genesis 14 comment about the vegetarian and things like that, you have to remember that in the New Testament, God came to Peter and shared with him that there's nothing unclean before God. So I think making the guests on the show are obviously not biblical scholars.
I know, and we're talking about, and we want to really focus on the spanking aspect today. I brought that up, the Proverbs we brought up because that is a part of the cultural look at about spanking. So what was your comment about that?
Yeah, and I have one more comment, too, about my own experience. But in the Proverbs was also written quite a bit before Christ even came.
Right.
But I think you have to look at context and things like that. But anyway, and I don't see that as a basis for beating your children, and I say that as someone who literally believes in the authority of Scripture. But now my own experience, I'm a 27-year-old white male, and I was spanked on occasion, and I don't think I never underwent a beating or anything like that. And I think the times I was spanked, it was a necessary thing, although I didn't see it that way at the time, obviously. But now at 27, when you get in your upper 20s, I think you start to realize where your parents were maybe a little bit more intelligent than you are, especially when they raised 3 boys before you. And, and another awesome thing I think about humans in general is that we are, as the Bible says, fearfully and wonderfully made, and we're all different. And the one caller that called about, his father could give him a look and he would get into tears. I have a nephew like that who you can tell him you're disappointed, and next thing you know, he's crying to the point he can't hardly breathe, that kind of cry. But I have a niece in the same family that you could tell her the same thing, and she would come back as adamant as ever. And if you for them, you have to figure out what works with the particular child because they all have the different little personalities. And I think in a dream world, we would love to be able to handle each child the same way and create a formula, but people are just so different.
Absolutely. Edward, we really appreciate your call. We've got all of our phone lines lit up, so I want to try to get to as many calls as we can. Thanks so much for giving us a call. Mary joins us from Virginia Beach. Hi, Mary. You're on the air.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to say I have 3 children, 28, 18, and 16, 2 boys and a girl, and they all needed different disciplining. Like my oldest son, I could give him a little whack on the behind if I told him no and he didn't want to listen, well, then he got the whack on the behind. I'm not talking switches and belts, just a whack. It's an attention getter, one whack on the behind. Now, my second son, you could beat him till the cows came home. That did not work for him. The timeout worked for him. And then my daughter, it would be, a timeout was, worked for her. And every once in a while, a little spank. But all kids are different. And depending on what they did wrong, the punishment, like they say, fits the crime. Depending on what they did that was so wrong. And being a parent, it's an ongoing, broken record, going and going and going.
Okay.
You just can't give up,
Absolutely, Mary. We appreciate your call. We're going to try to get to as many calls as we can. Janice, you want to respond to Mary, though?
Yeah, I agree with you, Mary. I just think that with every child, you need a different way of disciplining the child. It may be time out. It may be restricting a privilege. It may be taking away something that the child enjoys. I think everybody who has children knows that each child is different and they conform to different expectations. So you have to become creative, and I think you have to learn different strategies of discipline before your children get here.
Asadah, you want to respond?
Yeah, I definitely do. Yes, all kids are different, and what that means is that your skills have to be different as a parent as well. That means that if one is cool and calm and the other one is defiant, then you got to skill up because you got to handle that defiant one in a way that you can still nurture them and empower them. And that's the beauty of parenting. So you have to really get that handled. See, because once you instill fear and you start hitting, you breach a certain spiritual contract you have with your kids when they're in your womb. You wouldn't dare dream somebody punch you in your stomach when you're pregnant because of the damage they could do to the child. So when that child, they already have a relationship with you, one of protection and nurturing, and that's what the whole placenta is like, everything. They feel good. When they come out and you start striking them, you breach a contract that they innately have with you as their parent to be cared for and nurtured.
Asadah, let me ask you, though, I mean, from that perspective, I understand that from the woman's perspective because the woman carries the child. But what about the father? Where does that discipline come in?
See, I see kids having a certain relationship with their father as well, even though they're not in it. The role of the parent, kids love their parents. They really do love and trust their parents. But when the parent starts to inflict pain on you, and then they start telling you about how the world's going to inflict pain on you, it's very confusing because you don't really know how to differentiate the two because you experience pain at home and you experience pain when you leave.
When you're out.
That's right. So my thing is that when they're home, they don't need to be experiencing pain. When they're home, they need to be experiencing lessons and love and direction and a lot of different types of emotions that push them forward, not pull them back. And so when you get to the point where you get so frustrated that you have to quote-unquote discipline, and I do need you all to go to a dictionary and look up discipline because it does not say anything about hitting. Please go look it up. When you start using that as a source of discipline, then that's when things get confusing and things start going awry. And all I can say is be ready for what you're creating, because the problems that ensue thereafter, you hear it in the stories of the people in my book. Their beatings turned into different things as they became adults, and you just better be ready to handle it as a parent.
As a parent. All right, Kathy joins us from Chesapeake. Hi, Kathy. You're on the air.
Hi. She just made one of my points, which was about the definition of discipline, and it means to teach and train, not to beat bloody.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is I studied both at ODU and at Norfolk State, and while at ODU came under the influence of Dr. Kersey, and discipline, of course, is one of her pet topics. One point she made was, what happens next after you hit a child? It's very rarely that the child says to anyone, including itself, oh, I should have done such and such. What happens is the child withdraws, gets angry, avoids the person who hit him, sulks. There are all kinds of negative things, or retaliates. Watch out for the cat. And my own 4-year-old, and I have to tell a bad story on myself, taught me this before I met Dr. Kersey, unfortunately. He'd been horrendous all day. And I finally smacked him. I couldn't take it. But yet again, proving the point that it was my frustration that drove that. And I sat him down and said, do you know why I smacked you? And he said, no. I smacked you to make you act better. And he said, smacks don't make me act better. They make me mean and mad.
Wow, that's
so
incredible.
There's the 4-year-old knowing more than I did. That's all.
Kathy, thanks so much for your call. Asadah, you want to respond?
I love that. That's so awesome, because if you just listen to kids, there's a little boy on YouTube. He's like 5 years old, and he's commenting on these different things. And he's like, when you brush my hair, you brushing my face. Stop doing these things. Like, he's talking to parents going, this is how this feels. Stop spanking me. Stop abusing me. He's like, I don't grow. And he's expressing some of these same sentiments that this 4-year-old did. But I really want for us, and I love that I had a great time at Old Dominion University. I came out there recently, and they have something called it's against children that are abused. It's wonderful. So, I love the culture of that school. But yeah, it's really about, you're not getting that frustrated with your child. This is your offspring. This is this is a human being who has feelings and emotions and things that they want to do. So instead of trying to make them do what you want to do, why don't you take some time and find out what they want to do? What will make them feel good? I have a chapter called Pleasure Moments. And it asks, as parents, do you even know what your children's pleasure moments are? Do you even know what makes them feel good? Because whatever it is, then you need to do that. And you need to create that, because you made them, and that's part of your job.
Okay, we got about 4 minutes left, and I want to try to get in another call. Keith joins us from Newport News. Hi, Keith.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I have a master's degree in counseling and another master's degree from seminary. The doctoral concentration is in marriage and family. And you've touched upon all three of those from the standpoint that any good parent, as some of your callers have said, any good parent should have in their quiver a wide range of different discipline options as they deal with their children. And you're right, absolutely right, that every child is different, but you've got to look at every child differently. I would suggest, as you speak about spankings, and some caller has said, that the only options for that should be for the particular moments when the child has endangered themselves, grossly endangered themselves, because we do leave some indelible marks on them as we discipline them. But the other point that you make is an important point, that, you have these people who do call in and they speak about their biblical interpretations, and they speak about particular scriptures as opposed to looking at the message of the Bible, which says that God wants to establish with us a relationship. And if parents take time and establish a relationship, the relationship, I think, will go farther than any particular disciplinary tool that any parent will want to use.
Okay.
So parent trusts you and love you and sees you. In fact, children get in their idea of what God is by looking at their parents. So that,
all right, Keith, we appreciate that. We're almost out of time, and I want to give Asadah and Janis a chance to respond. Thanks for calling. Asadah?
Yeah, I just think that's an awesome comment, because the tone of the Bible, that's the point. Stop getting into the literalness and trying to, really identify with hitting kids with rods. That's not what the Bible is trying to teach. It's really bigger than that, you all. It's bigger than that. We need a certain type of future, and that's going to take a certain type of citizen to run it. we have to create those. Look at the skills of our children now. The skills of our children now reflect the skills we've given them. And so if you're displeased with what you see, look at what you didn't do to get them there. That's why they're there, because you didn't do something. We got to put it up, we got to build it up, and we have to change what we're creating into something better. And that's what I work to really put in my book, to show solutions on how to create what I just described.
Okay, Asadah Kirkland. She is the author of Beating Black Kids. You can find out more at beatingblackkids.com. Asadah, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. You take care now. All right. And Janis, you get the last word.
I just wanted to go back to the fact that discipline is a form of teaching our children. And I think we want to just not focus so much on spanking and hurting our children. When our children do something that we consider to be wrong, what's the message that we can share with our children that will enable them to be stronger individuals and make good decisions in the future? I think that's what we really want to do as parents.
Okay, that's Dr. Janis Sanchez, and she is a psychologist with the private practice here in the Hampton Roads area. Thank you so much for joining us, Janis.
Thank you.
And we had so many calls. We really appreciate all of your calls. And if you'd like to know more information, again, Asadah's website is beatingblackkids.com, and we'll be right back.
When I and my mother would disagree, to get my way I would run from her to him. He'd make me laugh just to comfort me, yeah, yeah. Then finally make me do just what my mama said. Later that night,
and welcome back. It was a sight to see more than 150 children and their fathers listening attentively as speakers encouraged the men to be better dads. Among the presenters was a local optometrist and honoree, Dr. Troy Morgan. Dr. Morgan shares with the group and our own Lisa Godley how his father positively impacted his life, and now he is paying it forward by coming to the aid of students at Norfolk's P.B. Young Elementary School.
There are very few who give and feel it and give so that children can succeed in school, like Morgan. He's a role model for me. He's a role model for all of you.
At 33, Dr. Troy Morgan is a man with a vision. The Virginia Beach optometrist uses his skills and talent to improve the vision of children in need. Morgan has been coming to career fairs at Norfolk's P.B. Young Elementary for 4 years. Not only does he give free eye exams to the children, but he provides glasses for students who can't afford them. For Morgan, giving back has always been important. He has traveled on medical missions to Ecuador and Jamaica, providing services to people who otherwise would go without. Here in Hampton Roads, he has developed a very unique relationship with students and teachers like Tanya Evans.
I called Dr. Morgan one day because I had a concern about a student who was having a vision problem. Mom couldn't afford to take him to the doctor, didn't have the insurance. I called Dr. Morgan, hey, can you help this kid? Dr. Morgan said, sure, bring him over. So I found myself calling Dr. Morgan all the time, hey, can you help this kid? Sure, bring him over. And we even had a young lady who needed polycarbonate lenses, right? And the mom couldn't afford the extra $40 co-payment for the polycarbonate lenses. So Dr. Morgan said, don't worry about it, just come get the glasses.
That's why Watchdogs, which stands for Dads of Great Students, recently surprised Dr. Morgan by giving him the Partnership Award for his dedication and involvement with the students at J.P. Young.
When I was in high school, when I was going to school and was thinking about going to college, we had to take I believe something called a COPS test, which is determine what your career could be or what are your strong suits. And I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I thought I would be able to excel in science, but I didn't know what type of doctor. And the guidance counselor actually told me, said, judging from your scores, you don't want to do anything when you grow up. And so I said, well, I was like, wow, I was kind of shocked. I said, I really wanted to go to college or something. And she thought maybe we should talk about trade schools.
Morgan credits the support of his family, particularly his father, for helping him achieve his dream of becoming a doctor. Proving his guidance counselor wrong, Morgan went on to attend Virginia Commonwealth University, where he majored in biology and pre-medicine. He achieved academic success on the dean's list. Fast forward 5 years, and his dream of becoming a doctor became a reality when he received his Doctor of Optometry degree from Pennsylvania College. 3 years ago, he opened Morgan Vision Care in Virginia Beach and often shares his story with students from across the community in hopes of encouraging them to never give up on their dreams.
Be encouraged, find some type of positive role model. There's someone out here you can reach out. Don't be afraid to ask questions. You can do anything you can put your mind to, and don't quit. You can do anything. Success is yours as long as you don't quit.
For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
And a special thank you to our intern, Courtney Jackson, for assisting with the production of that story. And it's time now for things to view and do in Hampton Roads.
You will be my Saturday love.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday love. Sunday, Monday.
Are you a first-time home buyer? Check out the First-Time Home Buyers class provided by the Urban League of Hampton Roads. It's tomorrow, Saturday, April 14th from 9 until 5 at the Urban League on High Street in Portsmouth. The class is free. Call 757-627-0864 for more information. There's a free health fair tomorrow, April 14th from 11 until 3 at the Basilica of St. Mary Parish Hall on Holt Street in Norfolk. There are all kinds of health screenings available, as well as classes in Zumba, belly dance, hip-hop, and African dance. Everyone is welcome and there is no charge. Call 456-2221 to find out more. The Cultural Alliance, along with Virginians for the Arts and Altria, present The Business of Art, a conference for anyone who works in the arts or supports the arts. The all-day event is Saturday, April 21st from 8:30 until 4:45 at ODU's Perry Library on the Hampton Boulevard campus. There is a fee. Call 889-9479 for details. And check out Men Who Cook, the Tidewater edition. Come taste the culinary treats of Hampton Roads' premier amateur chefs. Norfolk City Councilman Andy Protegiro and Tommy Smigel and teams from local fire stations and television news will cook up their favorite recipes. It's Saturday, April 21st from 6 until 9. Call 625-5857 to find out more. And finally, experience Norfolk State University's dance theater like you've never seen it before. It's the annual dance concert on Wednesday, April 25th at the L. Douglas Wilder Performing Arts Center. There are 2 performances, 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. Tickets are available. Call 823-9009 for more details. And that's our show for this Friday. We are glad that you joined us today, and we invite you to check out our website, anotherviewradio.org, and sign up for our eView newsletter. It's a once-a-week reminder of upcoming programs. Next week, we're going to talk about all the ladies in pink and green. Hampton Roads, get ready for the AKA Regional Conference. It's coming here, and we're going to find out all about the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. For producer Lisa Godley, audio engineer Perry Smith, Veronica Kinch-Clark, who answered our phones, I'm Barbara Ham Lee. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next Friday at noon for Another View.